We are creating a platform for those who are curious, one that tells the story from the artist's perspective. Moments in time captured from the innovators who are reshaping dance, music, theater, and the visual arts. This is the Working Artist Project.
Today, I sat down and I talked to a comedian, Miss Rita Brent. She's the first comedian I've had on the show. I am super excited to talk to her, super excited for you guys to hear what she had to say. Her comedy is interesting. We get into a myriad of subjects. We talked about politics, of course. We talked about her inspirations and her mentors. Rickey Smiley was a really big one for her. We talked about several of her accolades. She was one of the lucky few who gets to give a TED Talk. She's produced her own comedy special. She's done so many things. You know, she's not a person that waits for success. Guys, please help me welcome Rita Brent to the Working Artist Project.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Cherita and I, we grew up together. We went to the same performing arts school. I want you to talk about how you got into comedy and like the mentorship and your relationship with Rickey and how that all came about.
Well, I met Rickey. I mean, it was really a God thing. I can't explain it any other way. I had won an open mic competition in Birmingham, Alabama at the Stardome Comedy Club. And there were like nine or 10 participants, and I won that night. And the owner of the club was not in there to hear me, but his wife told him that I did good, and he thought that I should just be instantly graduated to the big stage, which was unusual because typically you have to go through a few more rounds before you get to make it to the big stage. But he said, I want to go ahead and put you on the big stage. And I performed there. And after he saw me perform, he said that I want you to meet Rickey Smiley. And I was like, oh, okay. So he said it, he threw it out there. And then a couple weeks later, it was a Sunday. He said, Rickey's going to be here. Come down. I want you to meet him. And I met him. And it was cool. Rickey had a lot going on that night. So he heard me and he liked what he heard. And then he invited me to come perform with him in Dothan, Alabama. And I did great that night. And that's when he said, I want her to be on all my stuff. So the Rickey Smiley and Friends tour is what I'm on. So pretty much when Rickey is the headliner on these shows, it's usually me opening up and a couple other comedians. Another one of the comedians is from Vicksburg. His name is Marvin Hunter. So it's me, him, and this guy who's really funny named Sean Larkins. We are typically the friends on the Rickey Smiley and Friends tour. So yeah, and Rickey's just been very supportive. You know, he calls me his mentee. He talks about how he met Steve Harvey when he was 19. That same guy who introduced me to Rickey had introduced Steve Harvey and Rickey as well. So this guy's just really cool, and I feel indebted to him for introducing me to Rickey, because Rickey has really taken a liking to me. He shares a lot of my videos on Facebook. He inboxes me sometimes to give me advice about how to manage my social media. So it's just been a blessing. I can't describe it any other way than it just being a God thing.
Yeah, that's great, man. I know for me, like, and maybe for you also, because we're about the same age. Like Rickey Smiley, I remember Rickey Smiley from all the crank calls or the prank calls back in the day. You remember those?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, just like I was like reading your bio, and I was like, oh yeah, it's like, man, it just brought me back to all those memories to me. You know, for me. So I know
right.
for you, I mean, you know, you've been listening to this guy for years, and to just have his guidance and to be around him and have him believe in you must be something special. It
does feel surreal. I mean, many times we're in the dressing room and I'm hearing him give his comedy tales of the people he's been around. It feels surreal. Like I feel like I'm in a movie sometimes. I just can't believe that God has shown me this favor. It's very special, and I don't want to take it for granted. I really, really want to make sure that I treat this opportunity with as much delicacy as possible.
Just so my audience knows what's happening here, you are, I don't know any other way to describe you other than like the ultimate entertainer. You know what I mean? Because comedy is like 1% or one aspect of what you do. You know what I mean? So you play drums, you do the comedy thing. You're also a radio host. Like the radio gig is your main gig. You studied radio, right?
Right. Yeah. Broadcast production at Jackson State University. So yeah, that's my day job.
And so, like, how did you that whole circle of like your entertainment empire? How did you build that, and like, or how did you conceptualize that?
Well, I'm still conceptualizing it because I have a tendency to take on too much and go in too many directions. I consider myself a jack of all trades, but master of none, and I don't think that's a good thing. Believe it or not, I mean, to some people it looks very impressive that I can do all these things, but my mind, in the meantime, is racing. Someone told me when I was an undergrad that I was talented to a fault. You aren't going to know what to do because I can do comedy or I can do music, but I want to become an expert in something. Like most people have a particular area where they are the smartest in, and I'm like good in most areas, but I wouldn't consider myself a master of anything. So I'm still trying to figure that out, the balance of it all, the balance of using all of my talents and meshing them together. And I'm kind of getting to do that with comedy, because sometimes I'll sing a little bit on stage. In my last stand-up show, I played drums at the end. So I'm just trying to figure out how to weave it all together. I look at folks like Jamie Foxx or Childish Gambino who have multiple skills as well. They just have these pockets so they compartmentalize their talent. So that's what I'm trying to do right now.
See, that right there just reminded me of Sammy Davis Jr. You know what I mean? Because Sammy played drums. He was a comedian. He sang. You know what I mean? So like, yeah. I don't know if you need to think about it like that, or that, it's like life will find a way for you to manifest those things into, or monetize those things into a career that you love.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, I have a lot of women on my show, and to be honest, man, most of the time those are the better interviews, to be honest with you. But
yeah, because like, women rock.
Yeah, really. Like I think what it is like women, you guys are better at articulating the struggle, and since you have to go, you face sexism every day, right? Or like so many industries are male dominated, especially the entertainment industry. Like, how do you circumvent that, or like if there was a young woman you're talking to right now or listening to this podcast, what advice would you give her so that she could be successful despite or in spite of those prejudices?
Well, my way around it, if I were to give any woman advice in the field, it would be to have self-respect and don't exploit yourself for $1 or a dime, whatever it may be. Have self-respect, know who you are, and don't allow anybody to define you with their own ideas of who you should be and how you should be. So being secure and knowing who you are is extremely helpful in this industry. So nobody is going to come tell me, oh, Rita, I think that you should talk more about sexual topics in your comedy. Nobody's going to tell me to do that because that's not who I am. I'm not a woman comedian who talks a lot about sex. So you're not going to tell me that's what I need to do to make it to the top, because I'm going to find another route because I know who I am and how I want to get there. But also just being on top of my game, the same idea that comes from Black people being told that they have to be more smart or they have to be 2 times as good. I feel the same way as a woman. I mean, the struggle of being Black is one thing, and for me, the struggle of being a woman is another. I guess I don't really try to look at it as a struggle because I don't want to victimize myself, although I am able to identify some things that are particular to me as a woman. But I'm just prepared. I mean, I just try to be extremely good at whatever I do. So I don't want any pity. I used to hate getting called a girl drummer, because when I get called a girl drummer, that makes me feel like I'm being judged by some other standard. Like there's a girl musician standard. I hate that. I just want you to respect me for my skill, and not be able to say, well, she's funny because she's a girl, or she's a good drummer because she's a girl. I'm funny just because I'm funny. I can drum just because I can drum. So part of that to me is just trying to be brilliant, so there won't be any question of my talent, no matter my sex.
Man, that's a great point. I recently had another female drummer on her show. Her name is Cherita tenant, and she made some of those same remarks that you're making right now, you know, because people would come up to her and ask her was she setting up her boyfriend's drums.
Yep.
You know, and
that's real.
You know what I mean? Like, I just was like, oh, wow, that happens.
Or have you ever walked into a room with some drumsticks and all of a sudden a lot of eyes are on you and they say, can you play? You can't play. I can't wait to see. You know, like all that doubt. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's so weird, man. I hate it.
Yeah, like those.
And then I feel like I have something to prove, you know?
Right. And that's a whole nother pressure, is like taking you out of your mindset that you need to be in to create.
Right.
If it's okay with you, I want to like let my audience hear a little bit of what you do as far as your comedy routine goes. And I like I like this one. It's the Tunchi Cat.
Oh, yeah. Inspired by my grandmother.
So y'all take a listen.
My grandmama turned 73 years old last week. Y'all give my grandma old ass a hand, please. My grandma turned 73 years old. But it seems like the older my grandma get, the more she talks shit. We was on the phone the other day, y'all. This is kind of hard for me to talk about because my grandma threw me off. But we was on the phone the other day. We were having a good-ass conversation. I said, all right, Granny, I'm going to let you go. She was like, all right, Rita, one more thing before you go now. I said, ma'am. She said, make sure you wash your Tunchi Cat before you go to sleep tonight. I said, hold on, Granny, don't hang up the phone because I want to know what in the hell is a Tunchi Cat. I said, listen, Granny, I don't know what you got in your drawers, but I got a bobcat, goddammit. I ain't but 28 years old. My shit still meow. You know, if you... So your shit probably on this ninth life. I didn't understand what a Tunchi Cat was.
Oh man, to me that's just funny because it's like, you know, that's just like a real story. Like, I was like, man, I listen to this, I'm like, what the hell is a Tunchi Cat? Like, you.
Yeah, it is real. And on that clip, I was still developing the joke, you know, so I definitely don't curse as much when I tell that joke now. And I ask the women in the audience, I say, who's 40 years or older? And half the room raises their hands. And I was like, yeah, all of y'all got Tunchi Cats. And then I just kind of go in on them. So
now,
that was just something I was trying.
Just so my audience knows, like, why you got to be 40 to have a Tunchi Cat, though?
Well, you know, in your 30s, it's still kind of fresh. But as you get older, it might start looking different, might start smelling different.
Oh,
you know?
Lord.
So it's keeping it real. You can't fight it. You can't fight biology. It's going to happen.
Okay. All right. That's funny, man. So, like, a lot of your jokes, are they derivative of, like, real life events?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I had to figure out what kind of comedian I am. Somebody asked me, what kind of comedian are you? And I was like, I don't know. So I had to go look it up. I'm an observational comic. So I observe things around me, whether it's politics or people at work. My everyday experiences are what I pull from to create my comedy. And to me, that's the best way to do it because, you know, once you present it to people, they're going to relate to most time, you know. So it can't be so far out there where I'm the only one that can relate to it. I just, you know, try to take everyday experiences and make them funny. So I'm an observational comic. So there's really not a time when I'm not observing my surroundings to see if I can find some kind of humor in it.
Now, let me ask you this, because I've always been curious about this as far as comedy and comedian goes. You know, it seems to me as comedians get more successful, more affluent, it's more difficult for them to be funny, with the exception of a few people, in my opinion, like Chris Rock. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they have a harder time delivering in, like, why do you think that is? Or do you even think that's true? I'm sorry.
I think it is, to a degree. I've heard people talk about Kevin Hart and the way that his content has changed over the years, and they are right. You know, when I'm watching Kevin's older material, he talks a lot about his ex-wife, who was his wife at the time, his children, and his content is changing a little bit now, and that's because his experience is changing. You know, his salaries have changed, so he's talking about what his reality is, you know, so people can either kind of progress with you and accept that your reality is changing and he's not having the same experiences as he was when he was 19, when he had just gotten started. You know, he's growing. He grows just like we do. And I think sometimes people are uncomfortable with artists' growth. You know, you think about somebody like Usher. It took me a while to get used to Usher's new songs because I was used to Take It Slow Usher. and the younger Usher, but he is having to evolve and be in line with today's musical standards, so he doesn't sing to me what I would consider classic R&B anymore. It's kind of a mixture of hip hop and pop. So he's changing, so his fans we're just gonna have to adjust, I think. But Kevin is still funny. His style is still the same. His content is changing though, but I think it's just a reflection of his new reality with new money, new wife. His kids are older, so he's going to be talking about different things.
I personally love Kevin Hart, and I follow him on Snapchat and everything. I got a little competition going on with him that he don't know about as far as going in the gym. I look at his thing in the morning before I go to the gym and be like, I can't let Kevin Hart be stronger than me, bro. He like 5'1".
That's awesome. That's awesome. He's inspiring people like that. That's amazing.
Right. So you never know, and that's a good point. Like, you never know who you're inspiring from your work. Now, do you mentor anybody coming up, or are you involved in any community programs like that?
Well, I mean, I get reached out to quite often. I have some younger folks that I'll put bugs in their ears from time to time, and folks inbox me all the time. So I try to not be on this high pedestal where I'm inaccessible. And I respond to people and give advice when I can. But I'm still very much a novice when it comes to comedy and entertainment. So when people holler at me and they're like, well, teach me how to do comedy, and I'm like, I can't, because I'm still learning myself. So, I mean, I've only been doing comedy for 4 years, so I'm still trying to grow myself. But I never miss an opportunity to engage with people and be a light, in the darkness. I'm always going to try to do that seamlessly. I never want to force it, and I definitely don't want it to seem like I'm an opportunist. And so if I give to a homeless man, you're not going to see me shaking his hand and putting a picture of it on Facebook, So I just do things and let it take its course without documenting everything that I do and for whom I do it.
I hear that. I think you're a little bit too humble, but no, really, I admire your humility, man.
Thank you.
So, okay, we both from Mississippi, and I think we had a similar upbringing as far as religion and church, because Mississippi is the Bible Belt. Me personally, I've diverged from that path a little bit, but it seems like you have not, and I respect that. So, how does that part, or how does religion, what role does it play in your creation?
Well, I mean, the church is in me. I honestly do not go to church as much as I used to. I mean, I used to have to because my mom is a musician, so I always had to play. But I don't go as often as I used to, but I still get the word through podcasts, and I'm listening to stuff, and I don't know, I'm just trying to explore God in different ways other than that traditional way of just going to church once a week and that's it. But it's in me. So when I'm on stage, you can hear it. It's like I'll tell a joke, and if it gets a big laugh, I might do something at the end of the joke like, oh, Lord, and people are like, oh, that's so funny. Right. And after the show, they come up to me and they're like, oh, you love Jesus, don't you? You love God. And I'm like, yeah, I do. But, I try to have a personal relationship with God. That's what I want, a personal relationship with God. And I want to kind of separate myself from opinionist type preachers. I'm very cautious about what I ingest and what I consume, because there are a lot of opinionist preachers today who are more concerned about sharing their personal opinions than they are, what the word says. So I want to make sure that I know the word apart from what, other folks are telling me it is. And I think that should be a lot of people's personal responsibility to know the word for themselves,
Yeah.
So, yeah, but at the same time, I feel God's presence in my life. I mean, certain things that happen, I know it's not through my own power. Like, it's no way that things could happen the way they've happened just by something I'm doing, So, absolutely, God is a driving force in my life, and I could do better. I definitely could do better about managing my relationship with God. But, I'm trying to do what I can do. Maintain some integrity in the process and not get too far out there.
Yeah, that's great, man. Now, you call him God, I call him the universe. See, and then see you. This is how I know you a bad motherfucker. It's because they don't call regular people to do TED Talks.
Right.
So, you know, as humble as you are, you did a TED Talk. And
Yeah.
what was that experience like? In how did you get that opportunity?
It was challenging. TED Talks are hard. Year before last, I hosted the TEDx Jackson conference. So this wasn't the big TED Talk. This was
Right.
the one in Jackson. And I hosted that one year before last. And then I told the organizers, I said the next year I want to do one. And, you know, I didn't think that they would be like, okay. But this last year came around and they said, and it was TEDx Women. So it was highlighting women. And they said, we want you to do a TED Talk. And so I had to figure out what I wanted to talk about. And it was very challenging because you can't promote in TED Talks. There are all these rules. You know, you have to share an idea. People have to adopt an idea that you're presenting to them. And I found it very challenging, but I think I did well. You know, I would like another shot at it at another time. I think I did well, and I got my point across. I was talking about women in comedy and how I wish that comedy was a little more genderless. Those same things I was telling you about. So there wouldn't be all these stereotypes and female comedian. And I shared some stats about the different comedy clubs and how few women come into these comedy clubs as headliners. And I was just saying basically that comedy is about the experience. It's not necessarily about the gender. You know, even though our genders and sex defines our experiences, you know, funny is funny. The quote I shared at the end of my talk was funny is funny, whether you have tits or not.
Right.
So just trying to share the idea of people being unbiased when it comes to comedy and not judging a comedian by their sex or some kind of, you know, demographic or salient feature, you know.
You recently had a video go viral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was Mr. Ben Carson. You do these videos where you pray for people. You know. So can we listen to this video and then talk about the effects or how you think about comedy and politics?
Absolutely.
Dear Heavenly Father and Black History Jesus, we come to you this morning confused and disturbed about our brother Ben Coon Carson. Lord, this fool got up and said that slaves were immigrants who worked hard for less. They were on the bottom of slave ships and they had a dream. Can you please let this man know that slaves did not come over here on a Disney cruise ship, Lord, with hopes and dreams that their children would meet Mickey and Minnie one day, Lord. Lord, I know Ben Carson is a neurosurgeon, but we need you to fix his brain and his life, Lord. Ben Carson think Rosa Parks was sitting on the bus because she had bad knees, Jesus. Can you tweet Ben Carson from heaven and let him know that slaves didn't work for less? Many times they worked for nothing, and they worked just to stay alive, Lord. Lord, we are not losing hope for our brother Ben because we know you are able. We need you to reach
Now
out
this
and
whole
touch
thing
Ben.
is funny,
Grab that
especially
demon inside of him and say, "Get out."
just because, you know, growing up in church and then this fool saying this stuff. You know, I watched his video and it's funny because that same, like a day or two later, you posted this one.
Right.
Man, I was just dying on Facebook. Like, wow. Like, you hit all of the points. Like, you know, like what, how did this come about?
Man, to be honest, I didn't even think that was the funniest video I had ever done. I thought my grammar prayer that I did was the one that was going to go viral. And it got up to like 800,000 something views, 850,000 views. But I think it was the fact that this one was so timely and that there was so much outrage about Ben Carson calling slaves immigrants. And I woke up that morning and I was already late for work and I was like, man, I don't have time to do this video. But then I said, okay, I'm going to be consistent. That's a promise I made to myself that I'm going to try to drop a video a week. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it and see what happens. And so I posted it that Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. And then it just started getting mad feedback. And so like 12, around noon or 1 o'clock, it was at like 90,000 views. And then Ricky Smiley shared it. When Ricky Smiley shared it, it went nuts. That next morning I woke up and I had 1 million views. And then by today, we're at 3.5 million. It's my job as a comedian to make light of things that are perplexing us. Politics is one of those things. Trump, everybody's up in arms. Everybody's divided about it. And so as opposed to me being angry, which is what I really feel, I've decided to release my anger through comedy, and I might as well build my brand, in the midst of being angry. So I've just taken on that assignment to try to put comedy in anything that I do for my own sanity, really. And I think it helps other people as well.
Right. Yeah, man. You've done several of these, and just the topic of politics and comedy, I guess those two things always go hand in hand, and comedians tend to find a way to make the ridiculous like laughable,
Yeah.
And that's a true talent and a gift, man. It's just unbelievable what he said, and that any person alive would say that is ridiculous, and that a person from your own community would say those things is just...
That's what was crazy, and that's why I called him a coon. That's the first thing I was like, man, I'm going to call this dude a coon, and I'm going to mean it. And, people were trying to respond to me saying, well, Obama said the same thing. Yeah, that was different context. And we know that Ben Carson has a history of saying things against Black people as if he is just completely oblivious to the Black struggle. But yeah, man, Ben is crazy. And I mean, I heard he's supposed to be coming to Jackson soon, and I don't care about meeting him because he's crazy. So I thanked him in one of my videos for saying stupid crap to help me get my 1 million views. So
right.
I appreciate him.
Thank you, dummy. So,
right.
So listen, so I polled some of my listeners to see what I should ask you. And this question came up, like, how do you make sure you don't unintentionally tell someone else's joke?
Studying, number one. Number two is integrity. So I listen to everybody. Moms Mabley, Red Fox, Bernie Mac. I listen to all these folks on a weekly basis. And if I hear an angle that they're taking, that I'm thinking about taking, because I have documents and documents of joke ideas. If I have heard Bernie Mac say something or Red Fox say something, I'm not going to take the same angle. It might be the same topic, but I'm not going to take the same angle. So a lot of it, just the way that I don't duplicate jokes is that I'm familiar with a lot of comedians, and if they get to something before I get to it, I'm just going to let them have it. Deion Cole has a bit about napkins. I had just written a joke about napkins, but it's pretty much identical, because we have the same experiences as humans. So since I heard him do it first, I'm not going to do it. But some people don't have that integrity. They just are like, yeah, forget it, I'm going to tell it anyway, which is silly because there's so many other things you could talk about. But for me, once I've heard a comedian talk about something, it's off limits for me. I'm just going to find something else to talk about. But I'm extremely familiar with all genres of comedy, black, white, you name it, I listen to it. So I can be familiar with things, because the last thing I want is for somebody to say I stole something when, it's just the fact that I didn't know somebody else did it. So I try to be real careful about that. Some people don't care, man. They'll hear you tell a joke and they'll go to another show and tell it. They might tweak one sentence or one word. I mean, I've heard my material stolen before, and I've confronted some folks like, hey, that shit ain't cool.
Man, I want to listen before we come to the end here, but I want to listen to one of my favorite jokes that I found online, and it was the boo-boo joke.
Oh, yes. Now, when you're doing the number two at work, that's when you need the most privacy. You understand? Because you got to put the tissue down on the toilet. And if your thigh touched that toilet at work, you got the Zika virus. You know that, right? Don't you let your thigh touch that toilet at work. But you know, I need privacy when I do the number 2 at work. You know, you don't have time for shenanigans at work because you trying to get in there and get out before somebody see your shoes. Can I get a witness? You understand what I'm saying, right? If somebody see your shoes, they don't know exactly who you are. You know, you'll be walking in the hallway later on. Your coworker say, "Hey," look down, but like, "Ah, just me. That was you in there blowing up the bathroom early."
Oh man, that's so funny to me because it's like such a real occurrence. You know, it's just like, oh man, like.
Yeah, I experienced that at work. This lady came in, and I was like, dang, because it only had one stall. And, you know, we're in the same department, and I was thinking, man, if she recognizes my shoes and then puts 2 and 2 together, she's going to figure out later on if that was me and then, you know, have an attitude with me and stuff. So I was like, yeah, I don't want nobody to see my shoes.
You in
then
the
the rest of
bathroom,
that
kicking
joke,
your shoes off, putting them on in your backpack and stuff.
Yeah, the rest of that joke, I say I have 2 pair of shoes, some regular shoes and some number 2 shoes. And I say, you know, get some Skechers or something like that.
Right. Listen, man, before I let you go, I want to, I ask every guest I have on the show this question, and it's, what are 3 things that you're most thankful for?
3 things I'm most thankful for. My mother, who has been so supportive and such a strong woman, raising me and my little sister alone by herself as we were growing up. So she's one of the strongest women I know. So I'm thankful for her. You know, she gives me spiritual advice. She's my biggest fan. Definitely thankful for her. Thankful for my gifts. You know, I see a lot of people who are depressed and down, can't figure out who they are, what they want to do with their lives. And I have all this opportunity before me. So I'm thankful for my gifts, and I don't take them for granted. I don't want to misuse them. So I'm thankful for them. And yeah, of course, I'm thankful for life. Absolutely. To be here, to have breath in my body, and to be able to have an impact on the world. So yeah, my mom, my gifts, and life. Absolutely.
Wow. So are there any, where can people check you out? And are there any performances or projects you have that you want to promote?
All right. On all social media fronts, I am Rita Brent Comedy. So Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook, RITA BRENT Comedy. And I have a couple of DVDs, a couple stand-up specials that I've recorded, and I'm going to be getting them on the website pretty soon. I do sell them out of my hand, so if you ever run up on me, I'll probably have a DVD on me. But I'm going to be setting up a website pretty soon so you can get my DVD from there. And other than that, when you follow me on social media, you can see where I am going to be. So I have some dates coming up with Ricky Smiley, and I'll have all that information on my Facebook and Instagram.
There it is, y'all. Rita B, Rita Brent. Thank you for coming on the Working Artist Project.
Absolutely, Darren. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah. Hey, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Working Artist Project. Before you go, I need you to do a few more things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on iTunes and Facebook. I would love to connect with each and every one of you. It would also be awesome if you guys could check out my Patreon page. The link will be in the description. Each week, I will recognize one of my patrons at the end of this podcast. If you want to find out how to get your name called, click the link below. Become a patron. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.